Hello everyone, my name is Jeffrey McIntosh. Welcome to another video here on my channel where we talk about everything related to Pu-erh tea. And today we're just going to focus on brewing techniques, on brewing raw and ripe Pu-erh. In a previous video, of course, I have the how to brew raw Pu-erh, which if you haven't seen it before, you definitely want to check that video out. Very good instructions on how to brew raw and ripe Pu-erh. Also a little bit more aesthetically pleasing than a lot of these other videos on my channel. I also talked about some of the two biggest tips and hints I use when brewing Pu-erh that I strongly recommend for you all, which is removing the lid in between infusions and allowing more time to rest in between infusions. You can really help prevent dryness when brewing raw tea. But there's something else that I think we should revisit, which are the three major variables when brewing tea: water temperature, tea to water ratio, and how long we steep the tea. And so I've had many people ask me, does it really matter that much if I use a little bit higher temperature, a little bit lower temperature, if I steep it a little longer? Is it really going to have that much bigger of an outcome? And the short answer is absolutely yes, and shockingly so how big of an effect it actually can have. Sometimes I would, back in the days, I would kind of text message or use WeChat to my tea master about, oh, I'm drinking this tea. I'd send it to my friends. I'm drinking this tea, and I take a photo of the tea I'm drinking, and I get a huge shocked emoji. Oh my goodness, there's too much tea in that gaiwan. What are you doing? Kind of reaction. And I would say, oh no, I measured it out as 3 or 4 grams. But you know, photos can be deceiving sometimes. But then it came up again in Patreon, where we had a number of folks that pretty collectively agreed that one tea was pretty calming, pretty relaxing. And it was a newer raw, so that was quite unique that it was calming and relaxing. And I recommended that tea to a few other folks, and they tried it 3 or 4 times, and they said, when I drink this tea, I just get too much pressure in my head. I just feel like it's a caffeine bomb. And I was shocked because I never had that type of reaction from that tea. But of course, everyone has a different body type and different reaction with tea. You have to find that out for yourself and experiment. But I was still really shocked. I said, how in the world can all these people have such different reactions to what I thought was a relatively calm, simple tea? And so I went back home, and for several nights in a row, I just brewed a really simple cup of, I had a gaiwan, I had a big cup, and I just poured. I said, I haven't drunk this tea in a year. I started making that tea. Big cups, pouring into the cup, drinking it, making it again. What I was doing there is I wasn't letting the tea rest, and I was using very hot temperature. I was using a lot of tea, quick infusions, and I noticed then I also had kind of a caffeinated reaction to this tea, which I don't have a memory of ever having that kind of reaction to this tea before. And then the next day you said, you know what? I'm just going to use a very small amount of tea, maybe 1 gram, and I'm just going to do a longer infusion. I'm going to let it sit there for 2 or 3 minutes. And then I did 1 long infusion, poured that into a cup. I did a second long infusion, I combined that to a cup, and then I drank it. Had a similar reaction, right? A little bit more caffeinated than I normally was. I couldn't sleep so well. So the next day you said, you know what? I'm not going to be brewing this tea on the counter anymore. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to properly prepare this tea, 2.5 grams, get the water temperature around 90, 95 degrees Celsius, get everything set up, do my first infusion, put it in my chai, slowly enjoy that tea. And I had several sessions with that tea. I was very calm, very relaxed. And I went, oh my goodness, how could I forget such a simple rule of being very, very careful with how much tea I put in there, how much tea to water ratio, how long am I infusing it. By changing the length of the steeping, the temperature of the water, and how much tea to water you have, you are essentially allowing the tea to change its characteristic to make it more caffeinated, make it more bitter, make it more dry, make it more aromatic, make it more sweet, those can all be controlled by how you steep the tea. So it's very, very important, next time you experience a raw pour, make sure you have several different sessions that are somewhat isolated from each other that are experimenting with how much tea to use. And that's why I constantly reference 3 grams. Raw pour tea is very, very particular. And changing the temperature, steep time, is going to have a drastic effect on the outcome. So start with 3 grams, use a lower temperature, use shorter infusions. And then you can increase the infusions, increase the temperature, increase the amount of tea to your liking. But if you start at that baseline, you can not have to risk, right, burning or drying out the tea and masking that beautiful subtle flavor. Instead, start at a low baseline and then slowly build on top of that. So I know I kind of went on a tangent there, and I do apologize, but it just really emphasizes the importance of paying attention to those 3 variables. Next time you encounter a raw pour that maybe one of your colleagues recommended to you and they said it was so comfortable and so relaxing, and you did not have an outcome that you thought was relaxing or comfortable or resembled what they had told you, the first thing you should do is stop, think about how much tea did I use in this gaiwan, how hot was the temperature, change some of those variables until you get an outcome that's similar to what you were told. Another important point that I realize is very important, this is actually one of the patrons brought this up, is I noticed that I always fill the gaiwan pretty fully. Like if I'm only using 1 gram or 2 grams of tea, I'm not just using a tiny amount of water, because then the tea to water ratio is too concentrated and it might make too strong or powerful of a brew, which also might affect the experience of the tea, right? High temperature, concentrated infusion, short infusion time, pulling it out, it's very dense. I always fill up my gaiwan, or I fill it up a good generous amount of the way. If I'm going to use less tea, I try to use a smaller teapot or gaiwan. If I'm going to use more tea, I use a larger gaiwan or teapot. So I make sure that I really use the correct vessel for the correct amount of tea. It makes a really massive impact. So I'm always filling up the gaiwan, I'm pouring it out, I'm letting it sit, I'm letting it rest, I'm removing the gaiwan. All these small things have a drastic differentiating outcome in the flavor and aroma. And that's really what separates people that just casually brew tea and people that seriously brew tea. And that's when you can start to tell the difference between someone who takes it very seriously, or if you want to use that term, tea master. Right? Those are the things they're paying attention to. Why does someone make tea so good? Every time, we all have that one friend. When you go make tea at their house, it's just so tasty. Well, they're probably paying very, very, very close attention to all of those 3 variables. Water temperature, how long do I infuse it, tea to water ratio, and then on top of that, removing the lid, letting longer rest times in between infusions, being very, very careful with the brewing, very intentful with every action they take. So next time you have an outcome with a tea that you're quite confused by, just change some of those variables and let me know in the comments below if this was helpful. If you tried to make some of those adjustments and to your shock made a big difference. Share some of those stories, some of those experiences in the comments below. I would love to hear about them. And I do hope this video was helpful on your tea brewing experience and journey that you all are taking. Thanks so much for watching, and looking forward to seeing you all in my next video.